Finally tonight, more than 1,000 pumpkins rounded out an exhibit on values. Legacy Elementary students in Salt Lake City created a pumpkin display with their teachers and parents. Each class was responsible for coming up with a theme and promoting different values. One class made a display promoting trust among peers. Another class depicted the importance of a good night's sleep.
A good night's sleep. That sounds good.
Yeah. I know, Rob, you're going to have your own lesson on your pumpkin for Halloween, right?
Oh, yes. Yes, we'll have more on that on Monday.
Oh, come on.
You're not giving it away?
No, it's top secret information.
He's going for the Yankees logo. We're going to see if he can do it.
That's it for Channel 2 News at 11. Thanks for being with us. The pressure's on now, Rob.
Good night.
The pressure's on.
Fisher Broadcasting.
October 28, 1999.
Thank you all very much for joining us here in New Hampshire tonight.
He was the man who didn't show.
It's an important night in New Hampshire, and I agree, and I appreciate the folks sponsoring the debate, but it's more important night in Dallas as far as my family is concerned. My wife.
And they wouldn't let him forget it.
We do take our voting very seriously. I'd really like to be able to ask this to the candidate who's not here, but I can't do that.
Like you, I share the frustration that Governor Bush is not here tonight.
That questioner that couldn't be here tonight, that wasn't Governor Bush. Because that would not be fair.
Still, it didn't stop the Republican Party from having a grand old time without him.
Thank you. That is an excellent question. I would prefer to duck, but...
Tonight, the 2,000 vote, the fight for the Republican presidential nomination.
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Substituting for Ted Koppel and reporting from Washington, Chris Wallace.
Let's admit it right from the start. The big story at tonight's Republican debate was who wasn't there. The frontrunner, George W. Bush, kept to his game plan, which is to engage with his opponents as seldom and as late in the campaign as possible. But with Bush's lead in the polls starting to slip and New Hampshire's notoriously demanding voters starting to complain, the Texas governor had to do something. So he went on local television there to explain why he wouldn't show up. Meanwhile, back in New Hampshire, Bush's 5 opponents held their debate, each of them trying to break out of the pack and become the prime challenger. In a few minutes, we'll bring in our 2 analysts tonight, David Gergen and Ron Brownstein, to discuss where the Republican race stands now. But we begin with the missing candidate and what Bush, in his interview, and his opponents during their debate, had to say about it.
And a lot of people believe that you're playing a Rose Garden strategy and you plan to play this game from afar.
Well, Tom, I tell you, it's an important night in New Hampshire, and I agree, and I appreciate the folks sponsoring the debate, but it's more important night in Dallas as far as my family is concerned. My wife is a distinguished alumna of Southern Methodist University. This event has been on my calendar for a long period of time, and as much as I regret missing the debate and giving a chance to talk about what I believe in New Hampshire, I really don't regret missing the opportunity to honor my wife. My family is important to me, and I think the people in New Hampshire will understand that.
Mrs. Bush, a question for you. If your husband had come to you and said, Laura, I have a really important event in New Hampshire, and I understand this is important to you, what would you have told him?
Well, I'll tell you what actually happened. I came to him last May when my university, Southern Methodist University, asked me if they could honor me as the distinguished alumni this year, and I said, can we put this on the calendar? And he said, sure. And I really appreciate that. It means a lot for me for him to be here with us.
I'm sorry, if he had come to you after and said...
It means a lot to me for him to be here now.
If he had come to you after and said, there's a conflict here, can we work it out, what would you have told him?
I would have said, sure, we can work it out. But I think he really knew that it meant a lot to me for him to be here.
All right, Governor Bush, thank you. You have maintained your same stance on this issue since the very beginning. I'm sure many New Hampshire voters respect that.
Well, I hope so, Tom. Thanks, Karen. Listen, I'm sorry I'm not there. I look forward to the debates. I've got a lot to say. But I hope the people understand I love my wife, and I want to honor Laura. And it's a great night here in Dallas. But I look forward to the debate you all are sponsoring.
And like you, I share the frustration that Governor Bush is not here tonight. He didn't come to a debate last week because he had a fundraiser. A couple of weeks ago, his plane got delayed. He had a choice between a fundraiser and going to a school in Rhode Island with underprivileged kids. He chose the fundraiser. So perhaps in the future, at a forum like this, if we call it a fundraiser, he might show up.
We asked two colleagues to watch tonight's town meeting. David Gergen is editor-at-large for U.S. News and World Report. He was also an advisor to 4 presidents, and he joins us from our New York bureau. Ron Brownstein is the national political reporter for the Los Angeles Times, and he joins us here in Washington. So, David, did Governor Bush make a mistake skipping this debate on top of another one last week?
Well, Chris, as wonderful as SMU is, I think he would have been well advised to see if they couldn't change their date. Yes, he made a mistake by not coming tonight. Frankly, it was one of the few mistakes he's made in an otherwise almost flawless campaign. But his campaign would do well to remember what happened with his own father back in 1980. You remember that Ronald Reagan was running well ahead of George Bush going into the Iowa caucuses, 50-14 in the polls. Ronald Reagan did not show up for the debate, ducked the debate, and Bush went on to beat him by 3%. It almost upset that whole campaign. These things can make a difference in New Hampshire. I'm sure he will show up at the next one.
But, Ron, you know, the conventional wisdom is that the front runner shortens the campaign, he limits his appearances. Isn't Governor Bush just doing what someone in his position should do?
What they normally do, that's right, Chris. But on the other hand, if you look at the tenor of that question that you alluded to in the clip that opened, when the woman said, look, we don't want the presidential campaign to be an auction, the risk to Bush is that skipping the debate reinforces a perception that in a variety of ways this election is being driven from the top down rather than the bottom up, that the establishment of the party is uniting behind him, he's raising all this money, gathering all these endorsements, and you get the other candidates trying to stir up the sense that he's taking it for granted. It's not skipping one debate. There are only so many people who care about that. But whether it can be seen as a broader pattern, that's the risk. And I think you're going to see him making a lot of effort to sort of rectify that in the weeks ahead by giving New Hampshire a lot of TLC.
We're concerned about it, and we saw it mentioned at the debate tonight. But do you have the sense that it really is beginning to cut with the voters of New Hampshire?
Well, the reality is that whether it's this or something else, you have more of a race in New Hampshire than you've had. There have been 4 polls in the last 2 weeks that have had McCain in the high 20s, Senator McCain in the high 20s, Bush around 40%. And the potential there, I think, Chris, is if Forbes can get his campaign going and begin pulling some votes away from Bush on the right, where Bush is still running very well, you could see the gap between McCain and Bush narrow quite a bit. So there is the potential for much more of a race in New Hampshire, although Bush still has all of these advantages, than there looked like there might be only a few weeks ago.
David, let me just ask you about that. You know, there is some sense that after months of smooth sailing that Bush is hitting choppy waters. His poll ratings are starting to slide a little bit. His opponents are gearing up. How vulnerable is he?
We don't know yet, but he's clearly some of the bloom is going off the rose. I think it's partly because he's hanging back some, and that's why he needs to get in the arena. He needs to be out there pressing now. He needs to be out in the fight. But that's what's not happening right now. There was almost a sense here that we're going into the Final Four with McCain moving up, Bradley and Gore ready to play, McCain ready to plplay, and where's the Bush team? Now, I do think Ron's right. He can rectify that in the next few weeks. I think we'll be seeing a lot more of him in New Hampshire. But he's got to get in the thick of this. It's not only a question of the top down, which I think is important here, but he has to earn this. He is not a well-known national candidate. He's got to go out and earn this nomination, earn the presidency. It's not going to come easily to him. Nobody's going to give this to him on a silver platter. He's got to take it for himself, and he's got to take the case for why the Democrats ought to be thrown out of the White House. That case I did not think was made effectively by the other candidates tonight, and George W. Bush better carry that case in his own campaign.
All right, we have to take a break here, gentlemen, but when we return, the candidates talk about taxes and the IRS. More of the Republican debate in a moment.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Volvo.
Somewhere between where you are...
How's babysitting, guys? We had a great time.
And where you're going. The new Volvo S40.
Maybe we should start with a dog.
Every bit of Volvo for about $23,000.
We're 345.6 miles from El Paso, Texas. Austin is north-northeast, turning south-southeast. Dry cleaner's 3.4 miles away. Buenos Aires. I am 45 feet above sea level. 47.
Should have bought you a tie.
You rely on Amazon.com for electronics and all sorts of gifts. They rely on priority mail to get it there fast and to save you money.
At this pace, we would get there in 12 days.
What's your priority?
Fly like an eagle.
Friday, a deadly car crash that uncovered another story. What happened when these young people went selling door to door? 2020 investigates Friday.
This is our art. We sculpt in metal, paint in G-forces. You won't find our work in museums, for we are artists of the streets. Our art places form in harmony with function. Moves body and soul. Cars are our passion. Engineering is our art. Acura.
So what do? Do you carpool the kids? Or commute with your neighbors? Or just prefer to be alone? Do you like to shop till you drop? Or have a night out on the town? The Accord for the year 2000. It fits, no matter what you do. Now lease the new Accord LX for $229 a month for 36 months.
In tonight's Republican town meeting, one question was posed to all 5 candidates. The question asked if each candidate favored the flat tax, and if so, at what rate? Senator Hatch gave the first answer.
Well, naturally, I favor throwing out the current system and getting rid of this awful IRS code. In fact, if I had my way, we'd get rid of the IRS and come up with the most fair, simple, decent, honorable system we can have. I'd be happy to have any change that would simplify this code, that would give people a chance to be able to save more of their money, that basically would be stimulative to our economy. And it's just a natural propensity in Congress to see us add more and more to that tax code until we satisfy just about every citizen in America. And it's killing our country. So I would like to get rid of this system. I'd like to start over. And I think it's going to take guts to do it. And if you elect me as president, I'm going to be a common sense conservative who'll get that done.
Sure, I'm for a flat tax. I'm for a tax system where average Americans can fill out their tax return on a postcard and send it in and not have the fear of an audit. But my dear friends, do you know why the tax code is 44,000 pages long? Do you know why it's a nightmare, a chamber of horrors for average citizens and a cornucopia of good deals for the special interest? The special interest rule in Washington, the big money, the huge 6- and 7-figure contributions that come in, that every time we pass a tax bill, we add another special loophole and a special deal for the special interest. I'm for reform. I'm for reform of education, reform of the military, reform of the tax code. My dear friends, that's not possible. That's not possible when average Americans are no longer represented in Washington, D.C. And I will fight till the last breath I draw to eliminate the influence of special interest in the tax code in every other part of America, and I will not rest until I give the government back to you.
You know, a lot of the great philosophers said that liberty is one of those things that once you lose it, you don't even know what you have lost. Whenever I see people talking about this tax issue, I think of that. Because as Americans, we have basically lost our economic freedom and we don't even know it. And when folks stand up in Congress and start talking like all our money belongs to them, it's because in principle, as long as we have the income tax, it does belong to them. And this country was not founded with an income tax. The founders put in the Constitution provisions that made an income tax unconstitutional, a direct tax on our people, government dipping directly into our pocket to spend our money before we get a chance to say anything about it. The issue isn't the tax rate, and the issue isn't whether it's flat or progressive. The issue is the income tax itself. I am an abolitionist. Shouldn't surprise you. I think that just as we had to get rid of chattel slavery in the last century, we need to get rid of tax slavery at the end of the 20th century, so our children in the 21st will have control of every last dollar they earn, and the government won't get a say in what is done with that money until after they deal with it. And then, in the open marketplace, you put a sales tax on transactions in that marketplace.
That's the key.
This is a very, very important question. There are two of us here tonight that have put flat tax proposals on the table. And I think, as always, the devil is in the details. If you're going to have a flat tax, what you describe as income becomes all important. I grew up in a home where my father was a janitor. I'm used to having bills last till Friday when the paycheck only lasted till Thursday. And so my flat tax proposal recognizes that the real wealth of America is in our families. I have a 16% across-the-board rate. You would be able to keep your mortgage deduction and your charitable deduction, and everybody would pay the 16%, the waitress and the corporation. I also have a 20% payroll tax cut. So my plan is fairer for families. It's across the board.
Well, this is a delightful evening, because when I ran 4 years ago, virtually every Republican denounced the idea of a flat tax. So education works. Some are slower than others, but they're coming along. And my plan is very simple. Gary, you're wrong. You should read the Union Leader. They had an article on my plan, and they got it right. And basically, I give generous deductions and exemptions to each adult and each child. A family of 4, such as the Daly family in Exeter, New Hampshire, their first $41,000 of income is free of federal income tax. That family told me when they did the arithmetic that they'd save enough money from my flat tax to be able to afford health insurance for their family. Real help for real people, real tax cuts for real people. Above the $41,000 level for the Daly family, only 17 cents on the dollar above $41,000. No tax on pensions, no tax on capital gains, and no death taxes. You'll be allowed to leave the world unmolested by the IRS.
And let's turn again to David Gergen and Ron Brownstein. Ron, you couldn't go wrong bashing the IRS tonight, could you?
No, absolutely not. I mean, the Republicans are still putting a lot of chips on tax cuts as a major issue at a time when prosperity has taken some of the edge off the issue for most Americans. In the primary, though, clearly all of these candidates are looking to talk about cutting taxes. Bush will be out eventually with a tax cut plan, and for that reason, it probably won't be the decisive issue, the key difference between them, because they will all be within a relatively narrow space, even though Forbes overstated the degree to which there is consensus on the flat tax itself. That's still controversial.
Well, let me ask you about that, David, because every candidate tonight supported the flat tax, except for Alan Keyes, who said he didn't want any income tax at all. Will American voters really support that kind of radical reform?
I don't see that as becoming central to this campaign. There was far more interest in that hall tonight, just as there was last night in the Democratic debate on issues like health care and education reform than there is on the flat tax. But I do think that Steve Forbes is right. He deserves a lot of credit for moving the Republican Party toward that issue. I think the flat tax is an issue that's going to be coming in the years ahead. I don't see it as top of the line in this campaign.
David, let me just ask you briefly. I mean, I was struck that the traditional Republican issues, tax and spending, really got very short shrift tonight.
Absolutely. In fact, the economic issues almost fell away entirely in this debate, and it was very striking, very unlike. I mean, there were two things missing in this debate. One was the economic issues. The other was a critique of the Clinton administration. Ronald Reagan was mentioned more often in this debate tonight than Bill Clinton was. And I do think, ultimately, Chris, that the Republicans are going to have a rationale about why there should be an end to the Clinton-type policies, and that, I thought, was not articulated tonight by any of the candidates.
All right, gentlemen, let's take another break, but when we come back, campaign finance. And can John McCain turn this into a two-man race?
Need stamps again.
Ew. With E-Stamp Internet Postage, you can buy and print postage whenever you want. E-Stamp. Postage when you need it.
When I was 9 months pregnant, my husband beat me. One night, he came after me with a knife and barely missed our son. I left. My kids and I ended up at a shelter. I realized it wasn't my fault. Women are beaten every day, and if we stayed, I knew he would hurt my daughter.
All across the country, battered women and children are starting new lives, thanks in part to Philip Morris, one of the largest supporters of programs that feed, shelter, and counsel victims of domestic violence.
But what frightened me most was that if we stayed, I was putting my son at risk of becoming a batterer himself. I grew up in a very loving home. My kids deserve to grow up in one too.
Working to make a difference, the people of Philip Morris.
We're picking up our CEO. Fortunately, the company cars have OnStar. We swerved off the road and boom, the airbags go off. There was a deer. I never saw it. Seconds later, an OnStar advisor calls. He says, I just got a signal. Your airbags went off. Should I send an ambulance?
We were fine, but she called for a tow truck and a limo.
Good thing I called OnStar.
OnStar called us.
Oh, right.
The one-touch connection to people who can help.
OnStar.
Call 1-800-OnStar-7.
Coming up.
About a half hour into it, I realized I'm on a date, and I panicked. It was the night before the battle. We were kids. We were lonely, I tell you.
Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher coming up.
Four airbags, a steel safety cage, and a whiplash protection seating system. All the safety you'd expect in a Volvo. At a price you may not. Introducing the Volvo S40.
Great walk, huh, Jake? Your next call.
And we're back once again with David Gergen, editor-at-large for U.S. News and World Report, and Ron Brownstein, national political reporter for the Los Angeles Times. Ron, there were several questions tonight that seem to indicate that voters are getting frustrated about campaign finance, this sense that Bush has so much money and that a candidate like Elizabeth Dole can't even get to the starting gate. Could that issue begin to cut?
I don't know, Chris. I think several distinct questions here. One is that historically campaign finance has not really, in the end, been a voting issue for many voters. Bread and butter issues matter more. Interestingly, you saw John McCain trying to put a very different spin on it, though, tonight. In the past, traditionally, it's been liberals and Democrats who talk about the pernicious influence of big money and special interests. McCain is trying to make a case that special interests are blocking conservative reforms like vouchers or the kind of simplification of the tax code that many Republicans want. I was with him this afternoon at a New Hampshire luncheon for software executives, and it was a very resonant argument with that rather independent audience. Whether it will be equally powerful for partisan Republicans is something that I think remains to be seen, but it's fascinating to see him trying to make that case.
Let me ask it, or come at it a slightly different way, David. This sense, perhaps, if it's not campaign finance, just a frustration. We don't want a coronation. We want a contest.
I think there is that clearly palpable sense that when you sent with the voters there in that hall tonight, that they really want to hear from the Governor Bush, and they want people to have a clash of ideas and to really put it on the table. And they see John McCain putting his ideas on the table very effectively, very charismatically, and they want to hear the rest of the story from Governor Bush. And I think that these other candidates did begin to frame that argument. Ron suggested it earlier. That Governor Bush he has all this money, but he's then enthralled or in the thrall of these special interest groups. I don't think that's the case, but they're beginning to make that argument effectively against him. And I think this campaign finance issue is beginning to really take hold now as a grassroots push. It's just like guns. At a certain time, people get so frustrated or fed up that they say, come on, guys, let's do something about this. Let's clean this system up. And you begin to sense that in the last two nights of these debates.
Ron, let's focus a little bit specifically on John McCain. We have seen in recent polls him beginning to separate himself and to become the alternative to George Bush. Did he help himself tonight?
I think he did. I thought he had a very good night. He was passionate, he was engaged, he was funny. He combined accessibility and command. I mean, he seemed like a guy that you'd want to have a beer with and you would entrust with nuclear weapons, which is a difficult balance to strike. He is moving up. He is particularly moving up among more moderate voters, more independent voters. New Hampshire is a very good state for him with his independent streak, the anti-establishment kind of tendencies that you see there. The question will be whether he can appeal across the party, whether he can begin to run better among more conservative voters, emphasizing his fiscal conservatism, his war record, his views on foreign policy, because in the end, Chris, the nominees usually are the candidates with the broadest appeal across the party. And that's what Governor Bush has right now that no one else does. Forbes is really appealing only on the right to the extent he has a constituency. And McCain so far has an island in the center and hasn't really broadened across the whole party.
David, on the right, Forbes versus Bauer vying to be Mr. Conservative. How did that play out tonight?
Well, I think Steve Forbes is the most improved candidate of the group, and Gary Bauer continues to be the biggest surprise. He's been very effective talking about his dad as the janitor, talking about his mom who's now elderly in need of health care. But I have to say, I think that Forbes emerged tonight as the stronger alternative on the right, and he's handling himself well now. He's relaxed. He got off the best lines of the best quips of the night, and I think he connected well. I think you go back to Ron's point, he has the potential now to draw some votes from Governor Bush on his right. But the man to watch in this race now is Senator McCain, because if he moves, if he continues to move, and he had an excellent night tonight. If he continues to move, this could become a horse race. It'd be very, very surprising. I think Governor Bush is still the heavy favorite in it. But Senator McCain showed us tonight that he had the makings of a very strong upset in him.
David, we have less than a minute left. Briefly, after watching last night and tonight, any thoughts about where you think this campaign, straight through next November, will be fought out?
I think we've been hearing all along this is a campaign with the candidates don't have a difference. There are no differences between them. Last night we saw two candidates who were very traditional Democrats off to the left. Tonight we heard candidates who are clearly going to be opposed to the Democrats on what you do with a surplus, what you do about choice in schools, what you do about choice in your health care plans. I think this could actually be a serious choice between two different visions of the future. I think that's encouraging. I think the last two nights have been good.
Gentlemen, we're going to have to leave it there. David Gergen, Ron Brownstein, thank you both very much for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. And I'll be back in a moment.
Elevator to lobby. By George.
Contacts, $320. Treadmill, $800. Wonder Bra, $26. Facelift, $3,000. Being happy with who you are, priceless. There are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's MasterCard. Happily accepted, most everywhere.
Think Zig. With Katerra's quick, responsive handling, it'll impress you left and right. Now think smart. Lease a new 99 Katerra for about $360 a month. Call for complete details. And think about this. Through November 1st, you'll even get a 3-year SmartCare basic maintenance contract at no extra charge. So drive a new Katerra today. Think Zig.
Driving with the power and control of a Cadillac Seville SLS is always a thrill. And you'll also be thrilled by this powerful offer. Lease a new 2000 Seville SLS for about $549 a month and $35.99 due at lease signing. Call for complete lease details. So put yourself in a position of power behind the wheel of a Seville SLS. It's a thrill you won't want to miss.
The Portland Chamber has distributed Step 1 to Portland and vicinity since 1994. It's a great tool for folks wanting to move to our area and also for those wanting to move within our area. This 30-minute video and booklet tells you about communities, schools, recreation, crime, weather, and more.
And as close as your Portland Chamber of Commerce. Funded by Safeco and KATU Channel 2.
Help them make a smart move. Call now to order Step 1 to Portland and vicinity.
Town Hall is the talk of the town. Named Best Public Affairs Program with K2 News anchor John Marlar.
Tonight we explore whether schools are doing enough to keep our students safe.
Trust John Marlar to connect you with today's debates to help you make tomorrow's decisions.
Is that the kind of justice we want in the state of Oregon?
This argument is just facetious. No one connects you to the local issues better than K2's Town Hall. Still the original. Still the most honored. Still the talk of the town.
For more on the Republican town meeting, watch Good Morning America tomorrow on this ABC station. And that's our report for tonight. I'm Chris Wallace in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
You can order a transcript or video cassette of this or any other Nightline broadcast by dialing 1-800-CALL-ABC or visiting abcnewsstore.com on the World Wide Web.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source. Tomorrow, why hire a personal assistant when you can use a robot? Has NASA built the perfect mate? Watch ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Some people call 6 PGA Tour victories a career. Tiger calls it a season. The Tour champion